Packing objects in your collection. Packing objects correctly is an important part of collections care, as it offers protection to your objects against a number of things, including impacts and physical force, pollutants and the environment, and even against pests. It can also help to provide appropriate support for an object, preventing it from tipping or rolling over, and prevent the need for unnecessary handling. Packing is usually done either because an object is going into storage or because it is going out on loan and needs to be transported. Depending on the reason for packing, there are certain things to consider. Packing for storage. Does the box you have chosen comfortably fit the object and fit into the space in which it needs to be stored? Will the box need to be stacked when in storage, and is it robust enough to do so without putting the object at risk? What is the environment of the storage space? Will this have an effect on the object, and are there additional measures that need to be put in place? How often will the object need to be accessed? It is best to put objects that need to be accessed often in easy to access areas to avoid unnecessary handling of surrounding objects. Ensure that the box or packing material has an appropriate label detailing the contents, including all accession numbers of objects contained and any relevant hazards. Packing for transportation. Is the box or packing easy to handle and retrieve? Is there anything that the handler will need to know to safely unpack and handle it? Is the weight of the object appropriately supported by the box for extended transportation? If the box is heavy, ensure that the handler is aware so that appropriate equipment can be used. Will the box or packing material provide appropriate support against unexpected sudden impact? Lastly, do you need any licenses for transportation, such as firearms or asbestos? Assessing your object. Whether you are packing for storage or packing for transport, you will need to assess each object individually, as this will affect your packing method as well. Do not be tempted to assume that similar objects have the same packing requirements. Some things to consider when assessing your object include the condition. Is the object fragile or robust? Are there any unstable surfaces that should not have anything pressed against them? Environmental requirements. Do you need to create a microclimate or allow space for silica gel, for example, for corroding metals that require a low relative humidity? Are there hazardous materials present that will need additional secure packing or additional labeling? Are there movable or detachable components? Consider which parts of the object are most vulnerable. Can the object be retrieved without putting that part under strain? For example, you should never lift an object by handles or protrusions. Choosing the right box. Always select the appropriate size box for the object you are packing. Does the object and the appropriate packing materials fit in the box and still allow for the lid to be secured on top? But is a large quantity of packing material required to prevent the object from moving around inside the box? Also consider the angle at which the object needs to be positioned and if it still fits into your chosen box. Materials. Whether you are repacking something that has been previously packed or packing an object for the first time, it is important to make sure that you are using the correct materials. Materials should be chemically inert, as some inappropriate materials can off-gas acids and other pollutants over time that can have detrimental effects on your object. They should be lightweight and softer than the object you are packing, but robust enough to provide sufficient support. Materials used for packing should also be economic, easy to use, and can be reused if in good condition and clean. Materials to avoid when packing objects include non-acid-free tissue or paper and non-acid-free cardboard, newspaper, biodegradable packing materials such as packing peanuts, polyvinyl chloride, wooden crates or boxes, polyurethane foam, dyed or bleached textiles, woolen materials, cotton wool, and pressure-sensitive tape. Materials that can be safely used to pack objects include acid-free tissue or cardboard boxes, inert foams such as plastazote or ethafoam. These come in various thicknesses, making them useful for a number of packing methods. Unbleached and undyed cotton, such as material and twill tape, Tyvek, polyester films such as Secol, Mylar or Melanex, and polyethylene or polythene boxes. Materials like bubble wrap can also be used to pack your objects, but only if you are packing for transportation. It should not be used for long-term storage. Remember to ensure that the bubble wrap is not in direct contact with the object by wrapping first in acid-free tissue. We will now demonstrate some packing methods and techniques to help you pack objects and collections of different shapes and sizes. Nests or puffs made from acid-free tissue are useful for cushioning individual objects or for providing cushioning between layers. Start with 2 sheets of acid-free tissue and hold them in front of you, overlapping along the center by about 1/3. Now use your other hand to roll the top edge over, then move around the tissue in a circular motion, scrunching the edges inwards as you go, until all edges have been scrunched under. You can shape these puffs or nests to fit awkward shapes or protruding parts of objects. Sausages made from acid-free tissue are useful for providing cushioning in between objects and in between objects and the walls of the box. Start by scrunching up the sheet to gather as much air as possible into the tissue, then unscrunch and lay flat. Then, beginning at one end, concertina the tissue until you reach the middle of the sheet. Then roll your concertina up to create a sausage. You can then fold the ends inward or twist the ends closed. For very small objects, you may want to create a small mount so that they can be easily stored inside a crystal box without moving around. To do this, you will need a crystal box or small acid-free cardboard box, inert foam such as ether foam, acid-free tissue, a cutting mat, a scalpel, and a pencil. Using an appropriately sized crystal box or small acid-free cardboard box, preferably with a Melanex window, line with a thin piece of foam or acid-free tissue cut to size. This will form the base of your mount, so ensure that it is appropriate for the object you are packing. Now take a piece of foam with the appropriate thickness to mount your object and cut this to size so that it also fits snugly inside your box. Ensure that it fits inside the box over the top of the base but still allows for some space above. Place your object onto your foam mount and using the pencil carefully draw around the shape of the object. Now, place your mount on your cutting mat and using the scalpel carefully cut around the outline you have drawn in pencil on the foam. Go slowly and always cut away from yourself. Once you have cut out your mount, do a trial to see if your object fits. You may need to make some alterations until your object fits comfortably. Place your mount inside your box and position your object inside the mount. When packing multiple objects into one box, it is important to observe the following guidelines. Heavy objects should always be placed at the bottom, and lighter objects on top. Acid-free padding should be used in between each layer. Always include a contents list, and have each layer listed on the outside of the box so that you don't need to rifle through the box contents unnecessarily. Do not wrap multiple objects in the same piece of packing material, as this can lead to breakages. It is often preferable to hang costume or uniform collections in unbleached cotton or Tyvek garment bags. However, this is not always appropriate for the condition of an object or feasible for the resources or available space in museum storage. In these circumstances, you can store them in acid-free cardboard boxes. When storing textiles in boxes, the goal is to avoid any folds in the textile or fabric, as this can lead to crushing of fibers, and these folds can become permanent over time, especially if the textile is already quite brittle. Using the acid-free tissue puffs and sausages that we made earlier, you can support the shape of the object without stretching it by recreating the human form. Remember to place acid-free tissue in between layers, such as underneath sleeves, to prevent the textiles from abrading against one another. When packing costume or uniform in boxes and in garment bags, it is always a good idea to place an image of the object on the outside of the box or bag to prevent unnecessary handling.